help you out downstairs with that. Anything else you might need, just ask one of our uniformed crew members. We do have a couple crew members on board. Your captain is Jennifer, your senior deckhand is Jay, and our two deckhands downstairs, their names are Kevin and Mike, and it's Mike's last day, so be nice to him. It's his very last day here. He's been with us for 3 years, so we're gonna miss him. Okay, anyway, again, I'm Leah. I'll be up here talking about Chicago, starting with this tall silver building on your right. This is the Trump International Hotel and Tower, designed by Skidmore, Owings and Merrill in 2009. It's the second tallest building in Chicago at 92 stories, or 1,362 feet in the air. And it was commissioned, of course, by Donald Trump, who originally wanted to make the building gold, but the city of Chicago said no. Also, some famous people live inside that building. Among them are Patrick Kane of the Chicago Blackhawks and television personality Steve Harvey. Now, coming up on your right, you will see a black boxy building. This building is 330 North Wabash, designed by Mies in the International style of architecture. Mies was a German architect who brought his particular philosophy of architecture with him when he came here to the city of Chicago. That philosophy was that less is more. I think you can definitely see that in his building designs. And this would go on to become a very influential philosophy on Chicago architecture, as you will see throughout the tour. And now coming up on your right, there are two twin 60-story poured concrete towers. Together these make a marina city designed by Bertrand Goldberg. I think they look a little bit like corn cobs. But originally they were designed to be a city within a city. At one point these towers held an ice skating rink, a bowling alley, a shopping center, and a theater. The theater still remains. It's now our Chicago House of Blues. Also, these are among the most photographed buildings in Chicago. They've been featured on the front cover of a Wilco album, as well as The Hunter, where Steve McQueen drives the car off of one of those two towers. Now over here on your right, the building with the black trapezoidal bays on the front is the River Northweston Hotel, designed by... But now we are actually approaching a very sad spot along the Chicago River, because this is approximately where the third worst maritime disaster in our country's history occurred. This was called the Eastland disaster, and it happened when a boat known as the Eastland was scheduled to take Western Electric employees out to Lake Michigan for a company picnic. Now, the Eastland had a reputation for being both fast and incredibly unstable. And when passengers boarded that boat on the stormy morning of July 24th, 1915, at a rate of 50 per minute, it couldn't handle the influx of new people. The Eastland started to rock back and forth. Engineers attempted to correct this problem, but it was to no avail. The Eastland capsized, killing 844 people, including 22 entire families. Like I said, that was the third worst maritime disaster in our country's history. More Americans died in the Eastland disaster than the Titanic or the Lusitania tragedies. And it happened right here on the Chicago River. But now let's talk about happier things. Over here to your right, you'll see a green glass building. This is 300 North LaSalle Street, designed by Pickard and Chilton in 2009. And it's one of the most environmentally friendly buildings in the city of Chicago. Among its environmental features are the fact that it uses river water to circulate through its air conditioning coils. The building also features a green roof, and everything inside, from the furniture to the carpeting, is made with certified recycled material. You will see a large beige building. This is the Merchandise Mart of Chicago, designed by Graham Anderson Probst and White. For those of you interested in architecture, this is in the Art Deco style of architecture, which was very popular in America in the 1920s and 30s. Now, on your right, the building with the dark windows on the side is the Chicago Sun-Times building. Formerly Originally, it was the apparel mart of Chicago, so it was built to show apparel. And when it was the apparel mart, it had no windows because it was thought that apparel was best shown under artificial light. But then when the Sun Times moved in, they punched those windows on the side because you can't have the Sun Times without the sun. Now the building does sit atop Wolf Point, and Wolf Point was the center of the city of Chicago in the 1820s and 30s. It was from there, in the year 1831, that our founding fathers took a boat ride across the river to what was then known as the Saguenay Hotel. And at the Saguenay, those men raised their pints of beer and decided to name Chicago, Chicago. Now, if you're wondering what that word means, why Chicago? Well, it does come from a Native American word that used to be used to describe this region. That word was Chautauqua, and Chautauqua could mean one of two things depending on which tribe you were talking to. It either meant big, strong, and tall, or wild, smelly onion in reference to the onions that used to grow along the banks of the Chicago River. As you can imagine, Chicagoans do have a favorite of these two meanings, but I'll let you decide for yourself which one you think more accurately describes the city of Chicago. So now we are headed down the south branch of the Chicago River. The river does have 3 branches. We're just on the main branch. The north branch we're not going to go down today. That's more residential. The south branch is a little more exciting. It's more commercial, so we'll see a lot of office buildings and businesses. But we're not going to go down the north branch because we want to get you out to the lake. So I'll show you this south branch here. Starting on your left and in front of the boat, beyond this next bridge, you'll see a large beige building. That building is the Civic Opera Building, designed by Graham Anderson Phillips White in 1929. It's home to the Lyric Opera Company of Chicago, and they do still perform there. Now, this building was commissioned by a man named Samuel Insull. Samuel Insull had a girlfriend. Her name was Mary. And Mary really wanted to sing at the Metropolitan Opera House in New York City. But I don't think Mary was very good at singing, because they did not want her to sing at the Metropolitan Opera House in New York City. So Insull, being the good boyfriend that he was, brought Mary here to Chicago and built her very own opera building. Unfortunately, he did so in 1929, right before the stock market crash and the Great Depression. That building financially bankrupted him. He lost all his money. He lost Mary because I really don't think she wanted to date anyone without money. Because they turned their backs on his girlfriend, who then, turned her back on him. Now, we're passing on your left, if you look back there, a black and red granite building. That's the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Center, known as the Merc for short, and designed by Fujikawa and Johnson. It consists of a 10-story trading floor that connects 2 45-story office towers. And you'll notice that the corners of those office towers are cut off. Those are known as serrated corners, and the reason to serrate the corners of the building is that's going to give you 4 corner offices per corner, 16 corner offices per floor. Now, coming up on your left and just beyond this next bridge, there's a black and white building that is 200 South Wacker Drive, designed by Harry Mies. And it's 38 stories tall. But originally, when Harry Mies wanted to build this building, the city of Chicago told him he could only build a 30-story building. He really wanted those extra 8 stories, though, so he said, hey, Chicago, you give me those extra stories, I will give you a park. Chicago really wanted a new park. They agreed to this deal. He got his 8 stories, they got their park, and the park that they got is this little park in front of us as we turn around here. This is Quincy Park, and if you're wondering where the park is, it's those 16 trees there. So he sort of swindled us out of that deal by giving us the smallest park in the city of Chicago. Now look up, though. You'll see the bottom of a black boxy building. Unfortunately, it's disappearing up into that fog there. But this is the tallest building we've got in the city of Chicago. As you can see, we can't even see the top. It's so tall. So it does stand at a height of 110 stories, or 1,454 feet in the air. It was designed by Skidmore, Owings and Merrill in 1974, specifically by the architect-engineer team of Bruce Graham and Dr. Fazlar Khan. The back and forth. Maybe if you'd like to visit the top, maybe on a day that's not so windy, probably not today because you won't be able to see anything from up there. But if you want to visit the top on a clear day without wind, you absolutely can. On the 104th floor of the building, there's an observation deck. And off the edge of that observation deck hang 4 glass boxes that hang over the side of the building. What you can do is you can step out inside one of these glass boxes and look at the city of Chicago below your feet. It's really cool, but a little scary if you're afraid of heights. So the view from the window of that 104th floor is also quite spectacular. Now, 2 men who weren't afraid of heights have successfully climbed that Willis Tower, one of whom was wearing a Spider-Man costume, and both of whom used a homemade suction cup system in order to do so. They were also both arrested when they got up there. It's illegal to climb that building. So we do recommend here at Wendella that if you'd like to enjoy the view from the top, you use one of the 104 elevators found inside the building in order to do so. Now, maybe you're wondering where that building ranks in terms of tallest buildings in the world. Well, at one point, the Sears Tower was the tallest building in the world. Now it's only the 7th tallest in the world and the 2nd tallest in America. The tallest in America is that Freedom Tower they just put up in New York City, and that beats us by about 300 feet. The tallest building in the world right now is the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. And to get the height of the Burj Khalifa, approximately, stack one Willis Tower on top of another one. So that building is almost 3,000 feet tall. I don't know, that might be a little too tall for me. I'll stick with our Willis Tower, still the tallest building in Chicago at 1,454 feet in the air.
How tall is that tower I never checked?
He's Abraham Lincoln. So Abraham Lincoln nominated right on that very spot there. As we turn here on your right, there is a green glass building with a curved front. That building is 333 West Wacker Drive, designed by Cone, Pedersen, and Fox. Its design was inspired by a green glass bottle of Perrier water. And the building was made famous by a movie that was filmed in Chicago in the 1980s. Does anyone know which movie? Not Ferris Bueller, yes, it was Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That's Ferris Bueller's dad's office building. Out of its ventilating duct. So that will be to your right once you cross from under this bridge. So here it is on your right now, 225 West Wacker Drive, again designed by Cone, Pedersen, and Fox. And this building was designed to honor our many bridges here along the Chicago River. So if you draw your eye up to the tippy top of the building, you will see a small bridge up there. Now in total we do have 36 bridges on this river. That's down from a peak number of 52. And a lot of people ask me if these bridges still open. They do, but only in May and November to let the tall-masted sailboats out to the lake for the season, and then again to let them back in. Sometimes they'll open during the season for maintenance or regatta. Actually, yesterday they were opening them to let an early wave of sailboats come back in, so you might see something going on this month, but for the most part they're going to stay closed. I don't think we're going to see any of that happening here today. If you look over to your right now, you will see a double-decker street over there. That street is Wacker Drive, and Wacker Drive was part of the original Daniel Burnham plan for the city, blueprint for a city in America that we call the 1909 Daniel Burnham Plan. And this plan contains rules on everything from buildings to bridges to streets. Like I said, Wacker Drive over there, part of the plan. While I think most of this plan was awesome, I'm not really sure Wacker Drive was the best part of it, because that is the most confusing street in the city of Chicago. Not only is there an upper Wacker Drive and a lower Wacker Drive, there's also a north, east, south, and west Wacker, and you can exit on your left and your right on both levels of that street. So it's really confusing and hard to navigate, and if you're not familiar with driving in the city of Chicago, you might want to avoid Wacker Drive altogether. But one vehicle that was able to navigate was the Batmobile. Lower Wacker there was used for the filming of the car chase scenes in The Dark Knight. It was also used in the filming of the Chicago classic movie, The Blues Brothers. And now directly on your right, that dark gray granite building is 35 West Wacker Drive, designed by two Irish architects, Kevin Roosh and John Dinkaloo. It's also known as the Leo Burnett Building because it's home to the Leo Burnett Advertising Agency. That's an advertising agency from Chicago that has given the world such characters as Snap, Crackle, and Pop and Tony the Tiger. They also are responsible for the Meow Mix song. Now to your right and in front of the building, there's a green building with a gold top. That is the Carbon and Carbide building, home to the Hard Rock Hotel of Chicago. It was designed to look like a glass bottle of champagne, and the gold at the top is real 24-karat gold. And then directly to your right, this way they would never have to walk around the rough streets of Chicago with jewels in their pockets. However, at the same time, that building here at the top was home to the Stratosphere Lounge, which was frequented by renowned Chicago gangster Al Capone. So I'm not positive their jewels were safe inside the building either. The blue glass building is Hotel 71, butted up against that is Mather Tower, designed by Riddle. That is our skinniest skyscraper in Chicago. And then the building with the curved front to your right is the former London Guarantee Building, designed by Alfred S. Auchler. And that sits approximately where Fort Dearborn once stood. Fort Dearborn was a military fort around which the city of Chicago sort of grew up. Now, after we cross from under this next bridge, if you look up and back at it, you'll see a flag up there that's got 2 blue stripes, 3 white stripes, and 4 red stars. That flag is our flag of the city of Chicago. And everything on that flag is symbolic. So the 2 blue stripes, they stand for our water here in Chicago. That's water in the Chicago River and Lake Michigan. The 3 white stripes, they stand for our land. That's land on the north, south, and west sides of the city, the east, of course, being the lake. And then the 4 red stars in order are Fort Dearborn, the Great Chicago Fire, the World's Columbian Exposition, and the Century of Progress World's Fair. And we'll be telling you more about some of these Red Star events later on the tour, so if you're interested in them, be sure to pay close attention when I do the history of Chicago, because that is when most of those will come up. But for now, I'll tell you that at one point we were going to add a 5th star to that flag. I don't know if you know this, but Chicago recently had a bid for the 2016 Summer Olympics. We lost that bid. Instead, they're going to be in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. But if we had gotten those Olympics here in Chicago, we would have added star number 5 to that flag. Now, however, we're going to take that star and we're going to save it up for when our Cubs finally win the World Series. On your right, there's a blue glass building with white wavy balconies hanging off the sides. That building is Aqua, designed by Jeannie Gang. It's 82 stories tall, and at 82 stories tall, that does make Aqua the tallest skyscraper in the world ever designed by a female architect. Not only that, but in 2009, when the building was completed, it won an award for the best design of a residential building in that year, beating out Trump Tower. So a little girl power here in Chicago with Jeannie Gang's Aqua. But now I do want to tell you just a little bit about the Chicago River before we head out onto Lake Michigan. Because the Chicago River is a really unique river in the world, being the only river that has ever been reversed and stayed reversed. It actually did used to flow the other way into Lake Michigan. The reason we had to reverse this river was in the late 1800s, it was incredibly dirty. Water flows to seek its deepest point. So at the time, the deepest thing this river was connected to was Lake Michigan. But we thought if we could connect it to something deeper on the other end, we could turn it around and make it flow the other way. The point that we chose was the Gulf of Mexico. In order to access this, though, all we did was stretch the 20-mile sanitary and ship canal out of the city to the Des Plaines River, which then does the rest of the work for us, taking that water to the Illinois River, to the Mississippi River, and then emptying into the Gulf of Mexico. And this crazy plan worked. On January 2nd, 1900, when that sanitary and ship canal was opened up, our river did turn around and flow the other way. But the result was clean drinking water for the city of Chicago. Now, as you can imagine, not everyone was thrilled with us for our little plan to reverse the river. St. Louis, particularly, kind of upset with us because we were sending our dirty water right along the Mississippi. But they got back at us in what I think was a pretty unique. We will then be able to go out onto Lake Michigan. Now, if you'd like to watch this locking process occur while we're in there, there's a couple ways to do it. One way is to compare our railing to the lock railing and look at how that distance changes throughout the locking process. You can also watch the water level rise along the concrete wall of the lock, or direct your attention to the front of the boat to see those front gates start to open and Lake Michigan pour into the lock. Whichever way you choose, enjoy the locking process. I will be taking a brief break while we're in here to let our crew do their thing, get us out onto the lake. Looks like we'll be able to see quite a bit, so that's good. Just a little bit of limited visibility with some of the tall buildings. And yeah, enjoy the locking process. Cherie's down at the bar if anyone wants to go visit her. Remember, if you're under 21, you need a chaperone. And I'm up here if anyone has any questions. for the city of Chicago. And then during World War II, they brought two aircraft carrier onto the pier and used them for the training of naval pilots. Hence the new name, Navy Pier. For a while after World War II, the pier was home to the University of Illinois at Chicago campus. But then when they moved to their current location, the pier fell into disrepair. There was even talk of tearing it down. But fortunately, due to a $200 million restoration project under the pier is now the #1 tourist attraction in the state. It contains, among other things, the Mies a beer garden, a glass museum, conhouse, house, a children's museum, various other dining and shopping opportunities, and the Chicago Street Theater. So something honored up here throughout the world, definitely will put to the bottom. If you look over here to your right, you will see a structure outcrop. pressed to think of a higher store. You cannot find a competition at it. So that shopping mall, let's start right north of the Chicago River. Let's head all the way down north to the Oak Street Beach. If you want to go shopping, that is the place to do that. Now, if you were to continue even further north past the Oak Street Beach, you would first hit a couple more beaches. You can see those when you look at the shoreline here. The first one all the way to the left here, that's the Oak Street Beach. You can see some more beaches. Where those beaches end, there's a large grouping of trees, and that large grouping of trees sits inside of Lincoln Park. Lincoln Park is yet another one of Chicago's parks. This one was named for President Abraham Lincoln. And it's home to a nature conservatory as well as one of 3 free zoos left in the entire country. That is the Lincoln Park Zoo. Now as we turn around though, I do want you to look back at the north side of the city of Chicago and note that a lot of the land you're looking at did not used to be there. The city used to end at Michigan Avenue on the north side. That's why it was called Michigan Avenue, because it was right on Lake Michigan. The reason we have so much more land extending east on this north side now, though, is thanks to a man by the name of Captain George Streeter. Well, Cap Streeter for short. Cap Streeter was a boat captain who once stormed the engine firing a boat out on this Lake Michigan. He came too slowly for him to continue, though. He turned back around. They said that he could, but he made no effort to fix his boat. Instead, letting natural processes and the debris that the city was dumping into Lake Michigan fill in the area around that boat, creating over 100 acres of land that did not used to be there. Cap Streeter then decided this land did not belong to the city of Chicago. It belonged to what he called the District of Lake Michigan, and because of this, did not have to follow Chicago.